yourself a cold one.
They strike 'em, huh?
And listen to Ross Tucker break down the top college prospects on another tasty edition of The College Draft.
Yeah, it's Daddy Soda time here on the College Draft Podcast, presented, of course, as always, by DraftKings. I'm Ross Tucker, former NFL offensive lineman, 5 teams, 7 years. You know that. Yes, I am back from Hawaii. That is a long journey, my friend, but it was an awesome game. UCLA pulled it out late with a field goal in the final minute, 16-13. Over Hawaii. What a great way to start my college football season on CBS. It was an absolute blast. Really an awesome weekend of games. And as Emory and I are recording this here on Monday, we got another one tonight. Florida State and Boston College. The Emory, of course, I speak of is the one and only Emory Hunt. You can follow him on social media like I do at FBallGamePlan on Twitter. I'm at Ross Tucker NFL. We are at Ross Tucker Pod. Emory's one of the OGs in the YouTube game. Football Game Plan on YouTube. And the draft guide for next year, the link is ready. Footballgameplan.com/2025 draft guide. Those of you that are longtime listeners know how I feel about that. So this show, for those of you that are new, it is awesome. It's 3 shows for the price of one, right? Price being 0, but 3 shows for the price of one. Every week, we're going to go over Emory's bets in the biggest college football games. His thoughts on those games and the prospects that we should all be watching, the NFL draft prospects we should all be watching in the biggest games. Since we're heading into week 2 now, we'll start by recapping how Emory did last week. Remember, he was in the black betting on college football the last couple years. So, Emory, we'll start with that. Felt good, didn't it, to get all these games, every team playing Thursday night, Friday night, Saturday, even last night with LSU and USC. It felt good, didn't it?
Oh, did it, man. It was great to see all sorts of college football all over the screens watching the broadcast. It is funny because when you did your post-game hit from Hawaii, I'm sitting right next to Chris. We just had to dip out the camera because it was a solo between you and Chris, but we was right there watching you do your thing.
So we were on the same show.
We was on the same show.
Oh man, I gotta see a clip of that. That is awesome. I loved it. That was fun, man. It was fun. There's just the energy of college football that's so cool. With like the I guess they call him the Rainbow Warrior came out and led Hawaii onto the field, and it was cool. All right, so let's start. It looks like, Emory, you placed bets on 7 games last week, and it looks like you were 3-4 to start the season. Let's start with some of the hits you had. You had Miami laying 2.5 on the road in Florida. They annihilated the Florida Gators, and it's so funny because this happens a lot. If you guys are a new listener or you check us out on YouTube, youtube.com/Ross Tucker NFL, this happens every year where Emory says something in the summer, and then after the first couple games, people are saying it. Emory over the summer, Cam Ward, Heisman contender, Cam Ward, potential first-round pick. Nobody else is saying that. Nobody else. Cam Ward came out and was awesome as the Canes put on the Gators 41-17, Emory.
Yeah, listen, there's a deeper story at play here, Ross, with regards to what I say, to what people listen to, and what other people say that everybody runs with that ends up being egregiously wrong with regards to quarterbacks. But this game played out exactly how I thought it would.
All right, I was a little skeptical of you laying 9.5 with Oklahoma State against South Dakota State, but they won. It worked. They won 44-20. Just too much up front, I felt like, for South Dakota State. Oklahoma State's got a very good team this year.
20 returning starters. The point of attack is where Oklahoma State is always good. And I'm going to have to look into the research, Ross, to find out if it's a state law that requires every stadium in Oklahoma State, Oklahoma, Tulsa, to have these close sidelines. Like, why are the sidelines so damn close at those three stadiums?
I don't know. It's a good question, actually. All right. And then this one surprised me because, truth be told, Emory's from Louisiana, and I think as much as we try to be objective, probably has a little bit of love for his home state squad and the talent that they have. Yet, last week, even though they were the underdogs, I think they were getting 4 maybe. Emory said, take USC on the money line, which if you're into betting, means straight up. If you're not into betting, then now you know. You said take USC on the money line, and Emory, they won 27-20. Why were you all over that one?
Because I thought Miller Moss was excellent in the bowl game. I thought he was a better quarterback than Garrett Nussmeier, and LSU's defense improved, but I knew Deontay Lynn would have his hands all over that defense and they'll buy in. Now, I was a little bit worried about the coverage in the secondary, but I knew what USC brought in the backfield and what they had on defense in terms of personnel, they had more than enough to compete against LSU. And I just thought that was going to be one that everyone slept on it quietly. I'm glad they brought it up during the broadcast, but USC is one of those dark horse Big Ten contenders.
Wow. I thought Nussmeier, I didn't get a chance to watch the whole game. I thought Nussmeier looked pretty good.
Yeah. I mean, the air yards are like 4.8. So he was completing a lot of, I remember at one point he was like 18, 19 for like 150 yards. Like, bro, he throwing handoffs. And the one good throw he had that was deeper down the field was a great one, and that was on the last drive when they had the football prior to the interception. But the second to last drive where they took away the quick option, which he was going to all night in the flat, and so he bought time and then hit a nice touch throw over the middle of the field on an over route to the receiver that got them deep into USC territory. But other than that, he was just completing a lot of short crossers, low crossers, speed outs, bubble screens. And you saw the issue was when he was dealing with pressure. When USC turned it up, he got rid of the football quickly as if he didn't want to get hit, juxtaposed to what Miller Moss did on the other side.
Well, explain that.
He was able to, step up in the pocket, stare down the gun barrel, take a shot while delivering the ball. He threw it deeper consistently, more so than Nussmeier. And once USC realized that Nussmeier wasn't threatening them vertically down the field, and they clamped down a little bit on those low crossers and those quick routes, and it was making these great open field tackles, that really changed the complexity of the game. Because you notice LSU started great, they moved down the field, and then there was this stalemate because USC saw what was going on, made adjustments, and clamped that stuff down.
All right, so those were your 3 wins, Emory. You did have 4 losses. Started Thursday night. You took Colorado minus the 9.5. They did hold on to beat North Dakota State 31-26. And your guy, Travis Hunter, put on an absolute show.
Clear-cut QB1 also did as well, Ross Shedeur Sanders. The country don't want to admit it, but he is clearly the best quarterback in the country. We saw that Thursday. And then what we saw subsequently from these other quarterbacks in these so-called big games is it made it even obvious that Shedeur Sanders is a legit stud.
He had some really good throws. Really good throws. I'm most impressed with some of the throws he made while he was getting hit, or under duress. That's probably the thing that impressed me the most. All right. Clemson, by the way, I will say this, Colorado, and I'm doing their game not this weekend, but the weekend after against Colorado State, they just got to clean up some of this stuff. I mean, 12 guys on a kickoff return. I have no idea. I guess they said they were trying to get the Wester kid a big play, but you can't throw the ball under 2 minutes there when they had the game won like that. So they got stuff to clean up for sure. Shiloh Sanders had a really egregious unnecessary roughness penalty. Probably could have gotten some more. Anyway, let's get to Clemson. You took Clemson getting 13.5. It was looking real good in the first half, and then Georgia just pulled away.
Clemson's offense is atrocious. They really can't do anything like they used to. I get it; they don't have the same type of dudes like the Sammy Watkins and the DeAndre Hopkins and all those guys that they used to have. But you got to have something if you're Clemson. And Georgia just showed you why they are one of these heavyweight contenders, that they are able to. Okay, we went for the knockout blow early, didn't work, but we can go 12 rounds and subsequently knock you out there, and that's what they did.
Yeah, they looked really, really good. You also took Western Kentucky, getting 31 and a half. They lost 63 to nothing. Jack put in the notes here that the over 59 and a half did hit. Did you take the over too? I can't remember.
I think I took the over, but I also took Western Kentucky plus the points, and it was crazy because they're moving the ball, getting inside the red zone, but the guy I was pumping up, TJ Finley, threw 2 red zone interceptions, and that just kind of like took away any chances of them trying to cover this spread. He ended up getting benched too, and they put the backup in, and it was just more of the same. So Bama just really, steamrolled the Hilltoppers.
This might have been one of the quarterbacks you were talking about earlier, Emory, as Texas A&M lost. You took Texas A&M laying the 3. They lost to Notre Dame 23-13, and their quarterback did not look very good.
Oh my goodness. But it was, everybody had this dude as listen, if they had, and it's crazy because how bad he played overshadowed how bad Raleigh Leonard played. But at the end of the day, Leonard had the ace in the hole because he was out there just running and helped spearhead the run game, which is what you get when you get a dual threat guy. Okay, my one side's not working, I'm going to go to the other side. So he just leaned into being a runner, scrambling, buying time, and or because he was running the ball well, those backs for Notre Dame would just, they started to find a hole, find a cutback, and just really just took advantage of a worn down Aggie defense that did all they could do to win in that ball game.
Yeah, take things to the next level this upcoming weekend. Drink some Labatt Blue Lights. Heck, you can drink some Labatt Blue Lights Thursday night with me in Orchard Park, New York. I'm having a watch party with Labatt Blue Lights at Danny's in Orchard Park. I'd love to meet as many of you as possible if you're in Western New York or can get there Thursday night. Live life to the power of we. Always enjoy responsibly. Beer, Labatt USA, Buffalo, New York. All right, Emory, we move on to week number 2 in college football. It starts Friday night, and it's Duke at Northwestern. That stadium for Northwestern is sweet. That should be their permanent stadium. I think I was there when my wife went to business school there. I don't think there's any parking whatsoever there, so I don't know what they're doing. I don't know how they're like shipping people in or not, but I don't care. It's amazing. It's kind of like Hawaii having an on-campus stadium. There's just something cool about it. So, all right. Let's start with this. Northwestern is laying 3 points at home against Duke. Who do you like, Emory?
Listen, this was a great game last week that Northwestern played against Miami of Ohio. Their defense stepped up on that last drive as Brett Gabbert was driving down for what looked to be the game-winning touchdown, and they made a play. And we talked about Northwestern in the spring and summer, how Mike Wright was going to give them an edge at QB, and play inconsistent. But when you look at Duke, man, if those receivers could catch, Malik Murphy would have had 400 yards passing. Probably throws some of the easiest deep balls that you see, and his intermediate passing was phenomenal against Elon. They struggled against Elon because of the drops, and then Elon was also doing a good job versus the run. But man, I like Duke in this ball game. I feel like their passing game should kick it into gear in the second time out there. Now that they got all the rust off, I think Duke can go in there and cover this spread, if not win outright.
Love it. So Emory, put them down. Duke +3 at Northwestern. Looks like that game is Friday night. All right, what about the big one on Saturday? What an awesome non-conference game. SEC, Big Ten. Kudos, first of all, to both these programs for scheduling this game. How about this? Texas is laying 6.5, Emory, on the road at Michigan. And we're going to make this your In the Hunt bet of the week, just because it's the biggest game of the week, presented by DraftKings. DraftKings, the crown is yours. Before we get to the prospects, Emory, who do you like to win the game and why?
I'm gonna lay these 6.5 points with Texas. We saw last week. Granted, it's week one. You don't want to overreact, but Fresno State in their passing game gave Michigan some problems. They were picking on Will Johnson all game long until the latter part of the game where he had the pick six, where he just kind of like read what was going on, drove on the ball, and just took it the other way. So now you look at them versus a better passing attack in Texas, and I feel like Texas looks at these games like we've done this before. Last year we went on the road to Alabama and beat the Crimson Tide. We have no qualms going on the road and taking it to Michigan. Plus, Michigan still has quarterback concerns. And I think that's a major concern for them, not only in this ball game, but in the Big Ten as a whole. Shout out to the Big Ten, though. They went 17-1 last week. Would have been 18-0 had Minnesota kicked that field goal through the uprights. But what a great debut for the Big Ten. But in this one, they take a L to Texas.
Ooh. Listen. First of all, Colorado State, I think, is supposed to be pretty good this year. And Texas put it on them. I mean, it was like 38-0 in the third quarter. That surprised me because Colorado State, this is, I think, year 3 for Jay Norvell. It is year 3. They've got a bunch of guys back. The receiver, Torrey Horton, the quarterback. Obviously, those safeties, Blackburn and Howell. And so for them to put it on Colorado State like that, Texas came out very, very impressively against their Mountain West opponent, whereas Michigan, as you said, not so much against their Mountain West opponent. So there's a reason why Texas is favored by 6.5 in this game for sure. How about that matchup, Emory? Isaiah Bond and Will Johnson, a couple of big-time prospects in this game that hopefully we'll go head-to-head a few times.
Right, because this is an NFL matchup. These are the matchups you want to see. And Bond is so quick, twitchy, explosive, able to get in and out of his breaks rather well. We know Johnson does a good job being physical. Sometimes maybe a little bit too physical. Sometimes maybe a little bit too aggressive and taking chances. And that's how he got a little bit beat last week against Fresno State. So what will he learn from that and take it over to this game if he's matched up on Bond? But the unique part about Texas is going to be they got 3 receivers that are excellent. And so it's going to be fascinating to see how he does against the different types of receivers he'll see because Bond also can win short, intermediate, and deep down the field. And Johnson is definitely one of the best corners in the country. Some may say he's cute, cornerback 1. I don't have an issue with that because he is very good, but you also got to wonder, will the aggressiveness be scaled back a bit in this ballgame based on what we saw last week against Fresno State?
Well, tell me more about that, Emory, because obviously I was working, so and all I saw was the pick 6 that he had.
Yeah,
but early in the game, Fresno State was attacking him.
It was attacking him. They were targeting him, and he was giving up some big plays because being over aggressive guy beat him, and then next thing you know, the quarterback on point with the timing, and was able to take advantage of him just having a step. And so at the end of the game, while they're up trying to shrink the score, shrink the deficit, because they had a chance to really take the lead in that ball game, but they lost that possession. And then this final possession that you saw, the pick 6, was when they're just trying to get something quick happen, and he read it perfectly. He knew down the distance, knew situation, and knew that this was probably coming, which is a tip to the cap of his preparation and able to adjust. And he read it beautifully, drove on it, didn't miss the opportunity to turn the ball over, and made the play. So, but earlier in the game, they were targeting him significantly, and had some big plays against him.
So does that mean, Emory, I'm guessing Michigan just had him in pure man-to-man, and that's what part of the reason why Fresno State was attacking him?
Right. It was a little bit of that and a little bit of, I'm going to play off a little bit, and then I'm going to keep my eyes in the backfield, see if I can kind of, play both sides of defense. Like, okay, I could handle my responsibility, but also keep my eyes on the quarterback and realize that he let a guy slip past, and it's transition, and it's just like you get caught in no man's land in that point. So it was a lot of everything for him in that regard that night.
All right, let's get to some of these other games. Tennessee is laying 7.5 at NC State, Emory. Who
First
are we
of all,
watching in the game? Go ahead.
quarterback Nico Iamaleava is fantastic. It's just outstanding throwing the ball. So that's going to be fun to watch. But defensively, you look at defensive tackle Amari Thomas. I mean, I'm always impressed by the large nose tackles that can move. And the reason why I chose him to spotlight because one, he's a pro prospect, but two, they're playing a team in NC State. They got abused up front, in my opinion, for 3/4 in that ball game against Western Carolina. And kudos to them for turning it around. But when you have to block a guy like this, and what we saw Western Carolina do, Thomas could have a big game. And Thomas is someone that kind of reminds me of what we saw from the Florida large defensive tackles prior to the one they have now, is that he's quick off the ball. He kind of destroys run games, and we'll see how that plays out in this one. And on the flip side, Jordan Waters for NC State, who was at Duke for his career before he transferred, he saved them in the second half because he started to break some tackles, rip off a couple of long runs, and just consistently got better as the game went on. Him and Casey Concepcion are two of the more dynamic players they have, but Waters is a pace setter. He's a guy that can break tackles, good contact balance. I loved how he ran at Duke, and we saw last week he was a big reason why they avoided the upset against Western Carolina.
All right, Tennessee's laying 7.5. Emory, who you got?
I got Tennessee here. Listen, Nico Iamaleava is fantastic. I got to keep saying his name. I said it all Saturday night while we was in studio just to be sure, to be ready for the season, that I'm going to say this name a lot because he is fantastic, and they spread the field. They'll make this one, I don't want to say easy, but this is a tough matchup for NC State.
Okay, what about Kansas State? They're playing Tulane, and I'll get the updated spread. It looks like Kansas State is laying 10 and a half here in this game?
10.5.
Okay, what do you got?
I'm going to take...
Actually, it's 10 now. 10 now.
10. Okay, I'll take Tulane in the points because I feel like this is a huge game for Tulane in the G5 opportunity for the postseason. These are the games they got to win or keep close to make it look like the group of five can get that more than just an auto bid, right? But Kansas State is fantastic. Running back DJ Giddens, to me, reminds me a lot of what they had before in Alex Barnes. People underestimate how good Giddens is as both a runner and as a receiver. And he breaks tackles. He has sneaky acceleration. He should have a big day against Tulane. But defensively, Cameron Hamilton for Tulane, 6'4", 280, can collapse down the backside, can get pressure. He's going to have a big game if they want to be successful and pull off the upset. But I do feel like because of the significance of this game for Tulane in a G5, this will be a closer game than people think.
Kansas State at Tulane. Emory's taking Tulane, getting 10. All right, last but not least, we've got Iowa State at Iowa, the Cy-Hawk Trophy game. Iowa is laying 3, Emory.
Give me Iowa State on the money line. I like the Cyclones to win this one. I can trust their passing game. Rocco Becht is a fantastic quarterback, has a great receiver he's throwing to in Jalen Noel, who is 5'11", 5'10", 200 pounds. So he's a stockily built receiver that can play the physical game. Had one of, 17 best catches of the year last week, because everybody had one, and he had one too against North Dakota. But I do feel like Rocco Becht and Iowa State can get the job done. Aaron Graves for Iowa, fantastic defensive lineman, strong at the point of attack, quick off the ball, another one that gets quick penetration. I feel like he had 3 sacks last week against Illinois State. Granted, but people will say it's FCS, but Illinois State with Brock Spack, the head coach there, always has a very good offensive line. That's one thing the Redbirds will come out there with week in, week out, is a very good offensive line for and a defensive line too. So Brock Spack knows what he's doing over there. So this wasn't just some guy dominating just a random FCS program. This is a good offensive line, and Graves is someone to keep an eye on in this ball game.
Iowa, their front seven is so good taking on blocks and discarding them. It is so impressive to watch. That game's going to be awesome. That's a 3:30 p.m. Eastern time game on CBS. I'll be watching that one in the hotel room in Buffalo. I got the Bills and Cardinals NFL Week 1. Should be amazing. He's at F-Ball Game Plan. I'm at Ross Tucker NFL. We are at Ross Tucker Pod. The keg is kicked. We are all tapped out.
Thanks for tuning in to College Draft. Make sure to also check out the Ross Tucker Football Podcast, Even Money, and Fantasy Feast, all on the DraftKings Network, YouTube, or subscribe to the podcast on your favorite platform.